can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better. Now, we're not here. The great thing about this is we all have come from different places professionally, have different knowledge and expertise as it pertains to health and other health-related items. So it's not about me. This is where we all get to participate. We all get active in this. And we're going to just learn from one another, because this is our learning community, and the things that we learned, and it's our responsibility to go out and share. So with that, with this quote, which was taken from the late, great Maya Angelou, in regards to this program, where the title comes from, Know Better, Live Better. How can we apply this quote to our lives as it pertains to health? Anybody, unmute yourself. Respond in the chat. You can use the chat if you don't want to unmute yourself, but let's get active.
I think as we, we're trying to learn to live. Oh, I'm sorry. This is Veronica Payne. We're learning how to eat healthier, whereas in the past we may not have done so. So I'm taking that, now I know better. I know how to eat healthier. So I'll do better.
Excellent. And thank you for sharing that. Anybody else want to share what that means to them?
Yes, good evening. This is Justin DeBerry. And just to add on to that point, the importance of knowing better is where everything starts. Before you can even decide on acting on a plan, you need to do your research and know what your next steps are before you take them.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. I thank you guys for sharing that information. Yes, the key is once we know, it's our responsibility to do our best to do better. Okay, all right. Now, we're all adults here. I don't even have to really speak much to this particular slide. We're going to have a productive and respectful conversation, knowing that we all may not agree on everything, but we can agree to disagree in a respectful manner and respect everyone's opinion and allow everyone's voice. Whoever would like to share, respect everyone's voices. But like I said, we're going to have a great time on this evening. But more importantly, we're going to walk away with some good learning tips as we continue to improve our health. What we're going to cover this evening, what does it mean to know better, live better? We're going to talk about finding trusted health information and preparing for a healthcare provider visit. On this evening, we're going to switch up things a little bit. Our last couple of sessions, we really focused on COVID, and due to the overwhelming participation we've had in our sessions, a lot of times the topic shifted to mental health. So tonight, we're going to focus on mental health. So here's the question as we start our discussion on this evening. What comes to mind when you hear the term mental health? Once again, you can unmute yourself. You can respond in the chat. We're all here to learn from one another. But what comes to mind when you hear the term, when we hear it all the time now, mental health, mental health? What does that mean to you? And we have my friend Franz this evening working the video production and will be helping out in the chat as well. But once again, you can unmute yourself. And my friend Franz, if you hear and see anything in the chat that you'd like to share, please do so.
Yeah, we have one so far. We have managing stress as someone's definition of mental health.
Okay, managing stress. I like that. That definitely falls under the umbrella of mental health.
We also have emotional well-being.
Emotional well-being. I like that. I like that. Anybody else? Feel free, unmute yourself, type it in the chat.
I often use the Surgeon General's definition of mental health.
Okay.
Having and being able to engage in productive activities, having healthy, functional interpersonal relationships, being able to cope with change, and being able to adapt to adversity, or it's adapt to adversity and cope with change. But those are the tenets that I filter my own mental health through, but also clients, patients, whatever you want to call them, feel comfortable with. What are your activities? What are your relationships like? How do you flow with change? How do you spring back from adversity? And from day to day, from time to time, self-included, it can vary.
Wow, I love that. And you know what? Because I can't see everyone on my screen because I'm sharing, whenever someone unmutes themselves, if they can introduce themselves so I can put a name with the voice, that would be very important. So the sister who just shared, and that was excellent, and I thank you for that. Can you share your name again?
Sure, I am Yvette Seeley. I am here because I'm a mental health professional, but I'm here more so because I'm a mom of a Kappa Leaguer. And I am all up to my eyeballs in being mom right now, but I got that professional knowledge too.
Well, guess what? We hope to hear from you a lot this evening then, Miss Seeley, and we appreciate everything that you do in getting your son also involved in our Kappa League program. So once again, thank you and welcome. I see there's some more stuff going on in the chat. Brother Marine, want to share that?
Yeah, just added the link that Dr. Seeley shared with us from the CDC, and it has that textbook definition of mental health. So that way we can record that as well for our personal notes.
Okay, excellent, excellent. All right. I'm going to share another slide for you to look at. Things that when we talk about mental health, that also, even though it didn't come out in the last few minutes there of sharing, but these are some other terms that you often hear associated with mental health. And anyone can feel free to speak to any of these terms that they see on the screen. Sister Erica, if you want to share anything, please feel free to do so. You are a health professional, one of our health professionals on the call this evening, and we always welcome your input.
No, I tend to agree with Dr. Seeley. That is also my go-to definition of mental health wellness. It's interesting that you went straight to the general surgeon. And that's so important that you are able to cope with adversity, that you can adapt to change, and that you do have good interpersonal relationships. Because at some point, it can't be everybody, right? So we have to do some self-observation. And we always have to be able to come up with plan B, plan, C, D, E, F, if necessary, if something arises. And so that's very important. And more important, mental health is something that is huge when it comes down to not being able to function and to show up. And I think that everybody, whether documented or not, has experienced it. So all of the topics and all of the words that's on here, stigma is a word that kind of like pops out to me. And I think stigma is something that is very prevalent, such as you have personal stigma, you have a governmental stigma, and then you have the public opinion stigma. Nobody wants to acknowledge that they have a mental health challenge. Nobody wants to acknowledge that they seek therapy. It's just not something that you raise your hand and say that you're doing. So I think the stigma kind of puts people in a corner, and it makes it seem that it's something that should not be talked about and addressed. So I think it's important that we talk about the stigma that's around mental health.
Yeah, sister, and I'm glad you brought that up, Sister Erica, there with the stigma. But here's my question to you. Do you think as time goes on that stigma is starting to decrease a little bit, or do you feel like it's still one of those things where you can't tell somebody you're seeing a therapist or you need therapy or you're visiting a counselor or what have you?
I think it depends on the environment that you're in and how welcoming it is. If you're in an environment that welcomes the conversation of, of therapy, if people are willing to be transparent enough, I think it can be so on how you deliver it. And so it can still be a stigma. I mean, think about it. Even though we say that we welcome therapy, if we were put into a situation one-on-one with a person that was, having a crisis, we might not want to choose that person to be in their space. But if we was, if we had a choice or an option, we might choose somebody different. And that's a known stigma that, people will choose, what we think is a healthy person over somebody that's documented to having some type of mental, illness. So it kind of depends on what the environment allows people to feel comfortable with.
Okay. Is there anyone else who would like to share a word that jumps out at them on the screen and want to feel free to talk about?
I think Dr. Seeley would like to put in a word edgewise.
Okay,
Mhm.
Dr.
Thank you.
Seeley.
Thank you. I do think it is changing. I think, it's rare that I have at the same day, same time, been in the same position as many of my clients. And I'm going back to the last 2 years when we were all waking up, wondering and being fearful for our lives. In the past 2 years, we have all had some level of anxiety. That doesn't mean we had a diagnosis of an anxiety disorder, or that doesn't mean we had a major depressive disorder, but we were all anxious. We were all stressed. And so I just ask people to tap into that. And I've never met someone who's told me they've never had a sad, down day. I don't use the word depression, but I've never heard someone say they've never been a little tight, little tense. That's where it starts. And so I think because of professional athletes who are more welcoming and willing to talk about it, it's changing. We're not there yet, but it is changing. And that's a good thing. And our children are leading the way. Our children ask for therapy. Our children ask for these things much more than some of us are still able to.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Seeley. I would have to agree, being that I, work in the school system, I do see a lot more kids being open about needing to see a counselor or getting outside counseling and not afraid to share that information at large and is not embarrassed as well. I do think there's still a stigma attached to some degree, and I think we have still a long way to go, but I do see more and more people being open about it and not being looked at as a negative or that, oh, this person has a problem. You know what I mean?
So hi, everyone. My name's Stephanie. As I was introduced earlier, I'm from the Department of Health. And I just do want to build on that. One, like most things, when there's a huge amount of stigma associated with it, it's generational change. So we're starting to see really the beginnings of it, but until it becomes more societally widespread, it's going to take a bit of time, right? We're going to need the younger generation now that's more open to speaking about mental health, becoming more in a place of power, really being able to spread their voices a lot with a larger wide range. So it's going to take a bit of time, but as Dr. Seeley said, it is moving in that direction. One thing that I wanted to really point out here is, in addition to mental health and behavioral health, it's drugs. So a lot of people don't really consider drugs being a mental health or a behavioral health component that really people need a lot of support for, not just the individuals who are using the substances, but also the family and friends of those closest to them. Because they're also affected by others' behavior as well. And how can they manage their stress, their anxiety, and their fear associated with it?
Wow, very good points. Very good points. I like what I'm hearing. Anyone else would like to share?
Hi, Brandon Reeves here.
Okay,
I've been an
Brandon.
EMT for 7 years. I'm a firefighter with the Yonkers Fire Department. And I do agree to that point of it being a generational change, especially as, a masculine kind of culture. And so being in the fire department, it's mostly guys. We actually only have one female in our fire department. But in terms of opening up and, really sharing our emotions or, we have this thing, critical incident stress management. We're supposed to have kind of a debriefing after a very stressful or very traumatic experience that we have, because we see some really terrible stuff out here, right? And so talking about it at the kitchen table is usually one thing, but actually seeing a therapist for something that is a prolonged kind of post-traumatic event, and you may not even realize that you're dealing with it in that way. A lot of the older guys, they wouldn't talk about it at all, and they would go home and engage in, let's say, some unhealthy coping mechanisms. But now we're starting to see that change. The younger guys are really talking to each other about, what went on and how they're feeling about it, and trying to find ways to healthily cope with those things. Our union actually just enacted a peer counseling program where we are being educated, people who are volunteering are being educated on proper ways to counsel their peers. You're more likely, I feel personally, we're more likely to open up to people who are our friends than a professional, because it's a different kind of vulnerability that you have with a medical professional versus your best friend. You may open up, you may be able to have affect greater change in your mental health that way. So I think that was a great initiative that actually just started a few months ago. But I'm seeing those things more and more with the younger generation, as she said, and so I agree wholeheartedly with that.
Yes, and thank you, Brandon, because you come with a unique perspective, being on a firefighter department as a firefighter and working primarily with a lot of men. And you're starting to see even a shift with more and more men now going out and thinking it's okay, and you're not less of a man to have to receive counseling for something. So that was very, very poignant points, and I'm glad you did share. And thanks for being on the call as well. Before we move on, I want to give anybody another opportunity. If there's anything else, another term on here that jumps out or speaks to you that you would like to share, or even speak to from experience, or something you're dealing with professionally, family member, or just want to talk about. All right. I want to share this because I think it's important that we know when we talk about mental health, what it is, but more importantly, what it isn't. I'm gonna give you a few seconds to read over the left column and the right column, the is and the isn't, and let's talk about something that spoke to you, or that really stood out for you as you analyze this chart.
This is Veronica Payne. Something that stood out to me was under where it isn't, like
Yes.
all in your mind. I think sometimes people are trying to reach out to us and they're sharing their feelings, and sometimes we're dismissive and said, no, that's not really how you feel. And I think we need to listen more to try to understand when someone says they're going through something.
Excellent point, and thank you, Veronica. Anyone else? Well, I'm gonna jump in. On the isn't column, it isn't fake news. It's nothing fake about something that you're dealing with. And like Veronica said, we need to listen more and not be dismissive or make someone feel like it's all in their mind. Just because you may not be able to relate to it the way that person is trying to express themselves or share, doesn't mean it's fake and it's all in their mind, or they're not really going through something. So for me, that really stuck out. It's not fake news, it's real.
Yeah, so just to extend what you're saying, on the is column, it says something we need to look after. My late great brother, Reverend Pastor, Brother Reverend Calvin Butts used to always say, we need a checkup from the neck up, right? And so the same way we look after our physical health, or the way we should also look after our mental health as well. Be mindful of, how we are reacting to our environment, our situations, and others.
Excellent point, Brother Crusoe, and thank you for sharing. Anyone else?
This is David Yearwood.
Okay, Dave.
Under the isn't column, I think to piggyback off of what Brandon said, that dealing with mental health issues is actually not a sign of weakness. It's actually a sign of strength. It's a willingness to own and take responsibility for our thought life, our overall mental health, and really mental health such as not just our mental side, but emotional, spiritual, there's just physical implications behind our mental health. So I think one of the most responsible things that we can do is take care of our mental health. And it's actually not a sign of weakness, but in fact, one of the greatest strengths that we can have working on our mental.
Wow, well said. I like that. It's not a sign of weakness, it's actually a sign of strength. I like that.
May I add one? May I
Oh.
add one?
Please do.
That I was to that same one, a sign of weakness. I took my son Parker to a barber shop in Spring Valley about a couple of weeks ago.
Okay.
And this was a couple of days after Twitch had committed suicide. Know who I'm talking about? Stephen Twitch.
Yes, yes,
So
yes.
we're in the barber shop and a group of men are having a conversation about the suicide. And so I thought it was lovely that these men were engaging in this conversation. But one of them said he was weak-minded. And I flinched, but I wasn't about to insert myself, being one of the only women in the shop. But some of them came back at the person who said weak-minded, and just to watch these men of color, struggle with debate about it being a strength versus it being weakness and having feelings and how do you manage it. I thought it was such the most beautiful thing to see that conversation happening in a barbershop. I was so happy my son was there to witness it.
Well, I'm glad, but I will tell you, I spend a lot of time on the weekends at the barber shop, and there's a lot of good conversation and discussion that happens in the barber shop, and I'm sure in the beauty shop as well. But thank you for sharing that. Anyone else? Just jump on in. This is good. I like this forum, and I like how we're sharing, because that's how we learn from one another. Feel free to unmute yourself. We'll put something in the chat.
Yeah, I find it's funny. I'm looking at this one, something you decide to have, right? Mental health, as if we have a choice in having mental health, right? We have it, but it just depends on what state it's in, and you know what you acknowledge and what you choose to do about it.
Good point. Good point. I do like that it lists in there on the is side that this is something that's important and we can no longer ignore these things. I think for a while, we tend in the past, I would say we would exhibit more things, signs of things, or react to it. Some of the bullet points that you see in the is it column. But I think now more and more people are starting to see from experiences and what have you, that it is important and it's something that we can't ignore. And we have to pay attention to some of the warning signs with our friends, with our family, with our colleagues, in our communities. These are all things, and it's not something that we can ignore. All right. I found this slide. This data was taken in the year 2022. And it said the state of mental health in America. A survey was taken about some of the most common mental health illnesses. And they also noticed that sometimes people may be going through more than just one or two, could have 1, 2, or 3 things all going on at the same time, so to speak. But just take a look at it and tell me, you know, what do you think? Would this fall in line with some of the things that you would have anticipated, or are you shocked by any of this? And Sister Williams, feel free to start us off if you like.
I have a question for the doctor or any of the doctors or medical professions on the line. This is Veronica Payne. I see that depression is like the highest one on here. And I'm wondering if prior surveys prior to COVID, if depression and anxiety were as high then.
Yes, Again, my name's Stephanie. I'm from the Department of Health. I have a background in epidemiology and am completing my doctorate in social epidemiology, which is adding in human behavior and connections to a lot of the different research. So yes, depression and anxiety were actually still the two most common mental health illness diagnoses. As the pandemic went on, there was kind of a dip down in new diagnoses because individuals did not go to physicians, so they weren't able to be diagnosed with anything, but then it picked back up again afterwards. So we did see a decrease in depression and anxiety cases that were officially confirmed through billing and coding on medical records. However, we know that's not necessarily what was seen during the pandemic, right? We know people still had depression and anxiety during that period of time. It's just there was difficulty getting to healthcare providers and mental health healthcare providers. So we are seeing it fairly consistently of this distribution of depression and anxiety kind of being so far more than other mental illness diagnoses. And we kind of dipped down and then went back during the pandemic. Now I'm sure Erica, because she is a nurse during this entire time, she has a lot more on kind of hands-on experience as opposed to someone who could tell you more of the numbers associated with it. So I'll let her speak to kind of her experience with mental health during the pandemic as well.
Erica, you muted?
I think I'm off. So,
Okay.
in agreement with Stephanie, yes, depression and anxiety were definitely the two most common. I think pre-COVID, and Dr. Seeley can jump in if there's any correction in this as well. Anxiety was leading prior to COVID. I think depression kind of superseded because of the isolation, because of the loss, because of the death, because of the trauma. It really highlighted, even in our children and our youth. As a pediatric nurse practitioner, that is what I'm also seeing, that the children were isolated, especially, single siblings, right? People that didn't have brothers and sisters that was forced to, homeschool. That was something that was, huge as well. And then people that were used to coming together in community, churches were even isolated in the sense that where people will only get a hug on a Sunday, we're not even getting that. And so depression definitely has taken its first place toll. Depression is something that can be suppressed. Depression is also something that people mask and don't know that they're clinically depressed. And so it's just something that people have to just identify, and address it. And the stigma kind of goes along with this. The other thing, and I don't think that this is probably a part of this presentation, but mental health illness is also one of the leading causes of disability, of payment, form of payment. When we talk about what we're paying, through the government, if you're disabled, as we went back to the general surgeon's definition of being whole-minded, right? Being able to get up and go and function, being able to get over, an opposition, getting along with people, coming up with a B plan. If you can't do that, then you can't get up and function, which means you are disabled, which means you're entitled to a check. And so mental illness has affected people where they are disabled because they cannot get up and function. So mental illness is extremely there. And I will say that there is a lot of people that's undocumented because they will not acknowledge, what's going on internally, with themselves because of the stigma. And so I think it should forums like this, talking about it, educating people. We have to also realize that there are some mental illnesses that are genetic, right? And then there are some that's chemical imbalance. And I think we have to identify, what's causing a person to have a mental illness. Because most depression, we have two types. You have a genetic, right, where there's a chemical imbalance, but then we also have secondary too, where that depression will kind of go away. We can become depressed because we have lost something. And then after a while, maybe we come back and center ourselves. But then there can also be just an imbalance, a chemical imbalance where you do need medication and you do need, CBT, am I saying it right? Cognitive behavioral therapy. There we go. Where you need a combination of medication and a counseling session. So, yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you, ladies. As we move on, we know with any type of illness, prevention is the key. And there's always some things that we can do. And in this case, to improve our mental health. Here are 6 keys to improving our mental health. Talk about social connection, staying active, managing stress. That's a big one for me. Brain healthy diet, quality sleep, meaning and purpose. Anyone want to speak to any of these 6 tenets here?
Yes, hello, my name is and Henry Wanamaker. I was just listening and I was thinking about what was said about the genetic and chemical imbalance. There's also, I believe substance abuse can also contribute. And I think also during the pandemic, when people didn't have a lot of access to, some of the recreational things that were closed, the gyms and so forth, a lot of people turned to alcohol and other substances, and there was, I think, a rise with that. So that may have also contributed to some of the problems with mental health and mental illness.
All right, thank you. But now that we're talking about prevention, let's look at some of these categories and let's talk about some of the things that we can do to put ourselves in a better, healthy situation. For example, I'll start us off, staying active. I think when you're active and you're feeling healthy and you're feeling good about yourself, and the way you look physically, the way you feel physically, mentally, or what have you, I think that's a step in the right direction. So staying active, staying involved, exercising, just staying fit, physically fit, I think is one of the keys to just improving our mental state of health. I would love for someone to speak to a brain healthy diet. Can someone speak to that one? I found that interesting.
Paul B., this is Tolbert Tillman. I was just looking at that and like staying active. That was one of the points. Like, I know that there's some activities that I do that just give me such endorphins and such a rush that that I love to do, and staying active is a great thing. But that brain healthy diet was one thing I was thinking, like, wanted to know more about, like, what can I eat what are those foods that I can eat that will be good for that brain health?
Yeah, I agree, brother Tillman, because one of our health professionals out there help us, guide us with that. Let us learn, what is a brain healthy diet?
So Harvard Health actually compiled a really nice list of different studies that went into what kind of foods can best help our brain. And one study showed that green leafy vegetables, things that have vitamin K in it, folate, beta carotene, these types of things can really kind of slow cognitive decline. So that can help. Fatty fishes, so like omega-3 fatty acids can help. There they've been shown to kind of help with things of kind of staying off Alzheimer's disease, I believe. And if you don't like fish, there are things that have omega-3s in it, such as walnuts and avocados. Berries are also very good for you. So one study showed that having 2 or more servings of different berries like strawberries or blueberries each week can delay memory decline. Tea and coffee, so having that caffeine in the morning doesn't just give you that initial kind of jolt and you're awake for the day, but it can help solidify new memories. So it can help you kind of create new memories as well for you to have further on. Like I mentioned, walnuts, they can help. So it's good for both heart and brain. So there's a lot of great food out there that can kind of help memory and different kind of learning capacities. Erica, I don't know if I missed any.
Stephanie, you mentioned the tea and the coffee. If I put 5 spoonfuls of sugar and some cafe mocha latte with some chocolate, is that gonna be okay for me?
Unfortunately, you're putting a lot of extra things that aren't really as great, right? So we don't want all of that sugar in it. We don't want all of those kind of empty calories with whatever goes into like the different frappuccinos. I'm not a coffee drinker, so I'm sure someone else can tell me all of the crazy Starbucks orders that people have. But for every good that you'll do with the caffeine of helping your memory and your brain, there's a whole host of other things that you're going to do to kind of worsen your health overall with the sugar and potentially, diabetes and things like that.
Now, are there any alternatives to the sugar as in like another sweetener or something? Because for me, I don't like black coffee. I don't really like tea, and those things help the drink to taste better to me. Are there any things that could possibly still not contribute to worsening mental health, but also make it edible?
Great question, because I want to know that as well, because I'm one of those that I have to get away from the sugar, and I'm having a tough time doing so.
I think you drink better coffee, you won't have to have the sugar.
Well, and we laugh at that, but that is actually very true. That is actually very true. So coffee has always for a long time gotten a bad rap, but there are some more studies are showing some health benefits to coffee, some health benefits to teas. So we are often very dehydrated as a people, and so we need to hydrate. And so we don't want to just drink plain water, that coffee, that tea, but quality coffees and quality teas. We're not trying to break the bank on it. We got budgets, but yeah, it takes sometimes time to train your palate to not need the sweeteners. But that being said, for those of us who still need a little sugar, a little sweetener,
That would be me.
And that's fine. There's a stevia, and I'm not a nutritionist, but I am I have a public health background as well. But there are stevias, there are other more quality things. So, I can share some things with the organizers that maybe can get put out, or go into a health food store. Go into a health food store and ask someone what, but we don't want to do the equals. We don't want to do the aspartames. Those can be carcinogenic, and we don't want to do those. So find something more natural. And I'm sorry I don't have any direct recommendations at the tip of my fingers, but there are things that are much more natural that can give you that little sweetener and still have you not blow the plan of what Stephanie was talking about being, and don't load your salads up. Salads are great, but don't load them up with all the dressing and the cheese and you might as well go have a burger if you're gonna have a mega salad. So There are ways. So I think what Stephanie is saying, I'm just reinforcing what she already said, nutrient dense foods, the greens, make your plate colorful. If you got a beige plate, because you got fries and you got a bagel and there's no color variation, that processed stuff, even the luncheon meats, everybody can have a ham and cheese, turkey and cheese, salami here and there, but processed foods, we want to go fresh. The salmons, we want to go fresh, we want to go green, color, red, orange, and nutrient dense. Beans, legumes, that will make a world of difference in brain health, that brain healthy diet that we're seeking.
Wow, thank you, thank you.
Yeah, I think also with connecting the brain healthy diet, connecting it to staying active, just there's reports and research out there that says that the more that you exercise, the more that you get blood circulating to your brain, the more active that you keep it. So exercising plays a huge, component in having a healthy brain, ample rest, making sure that you get the rest that you need at night. Also, to keep away Alzheimer's and dementia, they said doing Sudoku puzzles, right? Doing word puzzles, keeping your brain challenged. Keeps your brain, your left side and your right side communicating with one another. The more that you're doing that, the healthier your thought process is and you don't become stale. So staying active goes right next to that brain healthy diet as well.
I do want to mention when Erica says staying active, just simply walking for 10 minutes a day can do wonders. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you're exercising for an hour every day, right? Just doing some small things, making sure that you stand up and stretch if you're sitting down at work for an extended period of time. It's doing these small little things that all add up over time.
Well, I can't thank you guys enough for sharing that information at this time with that. I think we all were able to get something from that. And before we move on, I just want to confirm, are we still at that point where we feel 8 hours of sleep is the magic number for quality sleep hours, or has that changed over time?
I think usually now they give ranges depending on age. So I think for adults, and I'm going to qualify this with healthy adults because, it's different for people who might be on specific medications or have certain illnesses. I think they give you a range of 7 to 9, which is why they typically just say 8. But for example, younger children have a different range than teenagers because they're developmentally in different stages. So for adults, I think it's about 7 to 9 hours.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Since we're really talking health now, we all need some health goals. We all. That's the only way we're going to really start staying committed and staying focused on something. And we don't have to go too much in depth, but I'm just curious, what are some of your health goals that you have for this year or that you've been having for the last few years and you've been maintaining it? I know for me, it's walking. So I'm making it my business to make sure that I'm just walking a lot more than I've ever have. And I'm trying to do some sort of physical activity at least an hour a day. That's where I'm at this stage in my life. Would anybody like to share some of their health goals? And once again, you can put something in the chat. Want to share, anybody want to share what's in the chat there, my friend?
Yeah, we've got some good ones in here. Getting good rest is coming in. We also have reducing the intake of carbs and starches.
Okay.
Also, weight loss is always a fan favorite. And also exercising more by taking 7,000 steps a day.
How many steps?
7,000.
All right. Who said 7,000?
I don't want to call them out, but they can speak for themselves. But if we have to, we'll call them out.
No,
Yeah, that's me, Danielle Quarles. 7,000 steps a day. That's my goal this year. 7,000 steps a day.
All right. Only reason I said that, Dan, I'm not putting anybody on the spot or trying to call anybody out. I just thought that was, you're sort of in line with me. You're at 7. I'm trying to do 10,000 a day. So I was just trying to
Ooh,
see.
10.
Yes.
Wow.
I'm trying to see who my competition is there. All right.
Yeah, so I set some goal for myself. You know, when we were all stuck inside, you know, when the pandemic hit, I was walking somewhere around 25 miles a week, you know, entering challenges where I entered a New York City road runners challenge where I had to do, I think it was somewhere around 215 miles over 15 weeks. And I was able to do 5 to 10, 12 miles at one shot. Fell off, you know, since we went back to work. But one of the goals I set for myself for this year, this first month in January, you know, I kind of said I'm going to do 25 miles for the month. I was able to get that done. And that's just the short-term goal. But the long-term goal is to walk at least 3 times a week, you know, somewhere around 2 miles each of those walks. And so that's the long-term thing that I'm working on and hoping to get better.
Wow, that's great. Brother Crusoe, we can take a walk one of these days. That's basically where I'm at, so to speak. So I would love to, if you're up to it, go for a 2-mile, 3-mile walk with you one day.
Absolutely.
All right.
Also, you know, I think that's good. I don't know if it's the plan, like with the Kappa Leaguers also do, you know, in the springtime, you know, when the weather gets better, to maybe do a walk with them around Rockland Lake or somewhere over in the Westchester area.
Well,
Yeah, we were going to last year, I think right before the pandemic hit, I think, or somewhere around there, we was doing Kensico Dam. We were doing walks and exercising out there. So that's something that we'll keep in mind, and maybe we'll get it done. We'll get everybody get involved.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. We need to,
That's good, because adults will join too.
yeah, we need to get
absolutely.
everybody out there. I say we do the Cuomo Bridge, 7.2 miles.
And we have done it. We have done it.
Yeah.
I've done it. It's
And
a
those
nice
that
walk.
can't, those that don't want to walk it, you can ride your bike or your scooter.
Has to be an early morning.
Yeah.
Morning.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've done that, but this is good. I mean, we got to challenge one another, but we also, it's good to know that we don't have to be in this alone. It's nothing like having a friend who has a common goal and each one reach one. Iron sharpens iron. We can push one another, encourage one another, motivate one another, be there for one another. And that's how we continue to improve our health conditions, but more importantly, improve our communities when we get others to join us on this. So I thank you. That's why I thought it was good to share your health goals, to let you know that there's other people out there trying to improve as well. All right. We're going to move forward. When we talk about health information, it's just very good. If we can just share some places where finding good health information is not always easy. Miss Williams, Erica, could you just share with us some places that you think would be helpful for our listeners in trying to get some good, valuable health information, where to search, where to seek out, where to start? You might be muted, I'm not sure.
Erica, the question was for resources of where you could go to find different health information.
Is Erica still with us?
Yep, she's there. She's just getting her mic unmuted.
Yes,
right.
can you repeat?
Yeah, I was just hoping you might be able to share with our listeners where we can find some valuable health information as it pertains to some of the topics and things we've been discussing.
So we, in the health department, there's also going to be a resource sheet that's going to be shared with you in one of the slides. There's going to be a link that's going to be shared also in the chat. You'll also have different websites that you can be directed to, and you can always circle back to the Know Better, Live Better website and Department of Health so that you could get guided on some of the particular topics that you might have an interest of knowing a little bit more about. And if there's anything that you've asked tonight that we do not have immediately on hand, we can definitely make sure that you get that information. And so it's always important that when we are looking for, health information, that we are making sure that the resources are accurate, that they're credible, that they have evidence-based practice behind it. We want to always make sure that, we're not just pulling information out of the air. And I could tell you, working with Stephanie and Farah and the whole team, they have, really researched the land to find out, the accurate information that, that we need. So we have the information, we just got to tap into it. So there's a resource sheet that Liliana has actually dropped into the chat. You can tap into that. And then if there's anything that you're looking for, just also drop it in the chat as well. And perhaps before we disconnect, we can help you with that.
For those who clicked on the link, but it didn't seem to go, I just noticed that the bottom bit isn't part of the hyperlink. So I added another one for you to just click and be able to go.
Thank you, thank you. Guys, get those resources, tap into them, save them, share them. And as Erica mentioned, here are some things when you're looking at a source of any kind. You want to, one, check and see how old the information is. Things that doctors might have been telling people 20 years ago may not be the same valuable or relevant information now as we fast forward into 2023. What is the source? Are they an expert? Why did they say what they're saying? And what is the proof? Is the proof based on research, a study that was done, or what have you? So these are some of the questions when you are, whether you're Googling, reading a pamphlet while you're at the doctor's office or what have you, or just even talking to a neighbor, you want to start to ask certain questions to see, does it pass what we call the know better truth test? So here's one example. I'm going to let everybody take a look at this source right here, study it, evaluate it for a minute or so, and then tell me, would this be a source? Would this be something that you think would pass the test, the truth test, according to those questions we just discussed? Give you a few minutes and then we can share out. Would this be something that we would call a credible source? Why not? All right, anyone? I know, Brandon, if you're still on, I know you had shared before and you gave some good, valuable information as to your opinion about this. If you're still on the call, I would love for you to share again with our listeners.
Yeah, I'm still here. In terms of being a credible resource, when you look at the publisher, whoever's publishing the article, that can be a giveaway for how credible the source could be.
And in this case, tell us why.
Johns Hopkins is a world-renowned hospital system, and they publish a lot of the medical research and articles that are well researched, well developed, and I believe them to be credible. Many other people in the medical community believe them to be credible as well.
All right. Anyone else want to give their opinions, whether they would say this is a credible source or not? Don't be shy. There's really no right or wrong answers. Just share your opinion and state why, and we can talk about it.
Yep. Can you hear me?
And who's this?
Yep, this is Brother Bowen.
All right, Brother Ball, go ahead, talk to us.
Yep. Yeah, I just wanted to share briefly as far as I think most of us on this call, they see, the label of Johns Hopkins, and they would automatically assume that this is a credible resource. But I think when it comes to, like, for instance, just to your question, if there's anything that COVID has shown us in that time period has shown us, it's that, it's imperative for everybody, when you are with your doctor, or, when you do go in for your checkups, to make sure that you're having those honest and in-depth conversations. So, regardless of the resource that you see, like, for instance, right now with Johns Hopkins, and yep, I don't think anybody would disagree that they're a credible organization. But even if you believe that the information is credible, right? If you have any questions about it, or if you have any, kind of stipulations, making sure that you're bringing those kind of questions or concerns to, your one-to-one doctor, so that you can have your questions answered right there on the spot. Okay. So I just wanted to say that real quickly.
Yeah. Thank you, Brother Bowen. Some things to look at, where the source is coming from. And as it was mentioned, Johns Hopkins is definitely a credible source. They do a lot of research, and is an organization that we come to have grown to know and are familiar with. I like that it also has a website that you can go and look for even more resources. It even lists the date of when the research was done. Yes, we're in 2023, but it wasn't too long ago. So these are some things to make you want to at least give it some thought that, it could be what we would call a credible source and pass the test. Let's look at another one. Tell me your thoughts about this. Would this pass your credible source test? And if not, why?
This is Veronica Payne. I would say no, because the medical profession, like, they don't say the jabbed or the unjabbed, when they're talking to us. So I wouldn't even pay attention to this.
It's hard to even understand everything
Yeah.
you're saying there.
This is cute, right?
That's
But
all
these
it is.
But believe it or not, these are some of the things that you can run into anything online. So you definitely do have to be careful. Obviously, this is not something we would particularly we would probably look at as more as a cute joke or what have you, but not something that we would take seriously. But nevertheless, you do see things like this out there. As we move on, finding a healthcare provider could be challenging to some degree. I think it's important because, like I said, we have people from all walks of life on our call. If somebody would like to just share what has helped them in accessing a healthcare provider, as well as maybe some hurdles and obstacles that they had to overcome before they finally was able to find someone that they felt comfortable with. Anyone?
Yep. I actually can speak to this just in my profession. I'm constantly giving parents not just advice, but trying to point them in the right direction as far as, healthcare provider, where they can find help. At least for me, and if anybody else has any, different opinions, let me know. But at least for me, what I've really noticed and seen is that it really just comes down to trust. So what I mean is that, you know, parents that I might, you know, guide to, you know, a particular doctor or a particular, you know, area of health, you know, they'll go because they trust me, because we have a relationship, you know, as far as that they know that I've helped them in the past. Or even myself personally, when it comes to, you know, if I feel like, hey, maybe I might want to switch my doctor, or, you know, might have questions and, you know, that I need to find answers to, having a conversation with somebody that I trust, right? And then getting pointed in a direction where, you know, someone that I trust points me in, you know, I think is to me is the determining factor. So yeah, I just wanted to add that quick.
Yeah, no, and thanks, because like you said, here are a few tips when talking and looking for a healthcare provider and going on a visit or what have you. I like some of the suggestions here. First, proper planning prevents anything from going wrong. So prepare ahead of your visit. Take notes, come near knowing what you want to say, questions you need to ask. It's not a bad idea to bring a friend or relative. As when my mother was still alive and she was in her senior years, I would go with her to a lot of her appointments. I wanted to hear what the doctor had to say, so therefore I could better assist my mother in making sure that she stayed on top of her medication and when she needed to take it and what have you. And be honest. There's no need to be dishonest with your health. You got to be honest, or you're not going to get the best assistance, and ask questions. When you're in there, and in today's time too, you might have to wait 2 and 3 months to get an appointment. So when you finally get there, you utilize all that time and use it wisely. Don't let anybody try to rush you out of there. And you ask as many questions because you don't know how long it's going to take before you can get another appointment. Talk about being prepared. Once again, know what your symptoms are. Whatever it is that you're going to the doctor for that's been bothering you, ask questions. If the doctor's prescribing medication or what have you, ask why. What is it? And if you're already taking medicines or supplements, let your doctor know. No one can treat you if you hide information, but you also need to know why you have to take this. What is it going to do? Are there any side effects? Which is very important. You need to know what the side effects could be, and maybe the doctor may want to prescribe something different. I know with me, taking steroids has a really bad effect on my body. I can't, every time I try or the doctor prescribes, I try, and a day later I stop. I just can't. So I know how it interacts with my body. So I can't take those. It's a bad feeling and I can't deal with it. So you need to know these things. You need to know your body, and you need to let the doctor know what are the alternatives. Sister Erica Williams, you want to share anything with that as well?
I think that as we prepare for the healthcare visit, you know, feel free to be bold enough to ask, you know, questions. I know sometimes the moment can be a passing moment. You know, you're in there and you're out really quick, but you are definitely encouraged to speak up, come with questions even, you know, and don't feel intimidated. You're also encouraged to have second, third, fourth opinions if that's what you need to make you feel comfortable in your healthcare needs.
Yeah, thank you, Sister Williams. And here's
I
something.
think I also think that having a relationship with your healthcare provider is important, that you're able to talk to them the same way you talk to anybody else that's providing you with any type of service. And if I can't have a genuine conversation with my healthcare provider, then they're not going to be my healthcare provider. So I have to feel real comfortable with sitting there and talking to them in the way that I can convey whatever it is that I'm conveying and they responding to me.
Excellent point. Excellent point. Relationships are very important. Sister Aguilar put something in the chat that I want to share out for those who may not have had an opportunity to view it. She says you should repeat back what you heard. That way the doctor can clarify anything. And I think that's a good way to make sure you both are on the same page, and what he said is the way you heard it and vice versa. So I think that's an excellent point. And thank you, Sister Aguilar, for sharing that.
May I just add, that's also a part of health literacy, understanding and making sure you as the provider know that your patient understood the instructions you gave them. But another thing I want to share is that, you know, years ago, I went in for a physical exam, just regular physical exam, and my doctor starts to ask me about depression. And me being a mental health provider, I was thrilled that she was asking these questions. I wasn't giving her any signs that I had a concern with depression, but she included it as a part of her regular screening for physical health. I was going for, is my cholesterol high? Is my weight too high? Is whatever. She asked about depression and anxiety. And so a good provider, primary care doctor, should include that in an overall screening. But we as just patients should be able to share that with a primary care provider, and then that person be able to refer us to a mental health specialist.
Excellent, excellent. And thank you for adding on to that. Beautiful points here. Okay, as we start to wrap up our presentation for the evening, what is your plan to know better, live better? We all need a plan. Here are some ideas, things that we talked about. Only share trustworthy health information. Prepare questions when it's time for you to go for your next healthcare visit. I like this. Check out a healthy recipe book from the library. We definitely have to watch what we're putting into our bodies. And I like how earlier on, people were saying eating more nuts, walnuts, berries. We want that brain power, things that's going to really improve our brain. And I thought that was very important. Depending on what's going on, we are still living in COVID times. You know, it's a personal choice, but getting booster shots for different things, you might want to consider. And research local mental health services. You just never know, and it's nothing wrong. Remember, we talk about having stigmas. There's no stigma, nothing wrong with having to go get counseling, to meet with someone regarding something you're struggling, you're dealing with, or even for our kids. We have to let our children know that it's okay, that it's not a bad thing, or it's not something wrong or weird with them because they're going through this and they need help. We should be glad that they're able to identify that they're struggling with something and it's bigger than them and they need help coping with it, and how to deal with it. So please, let's continue to encourage one another with that. And we are here to help. You may want to take out your phones and take a screenshot of this so you have this resource here forever. There's an email if you think of questions later. The website to Westchester, to the health.westchestergov.com. There's tons of resources, even things that we didn't put in the chat this evening. It's very important as we continue to grow as a community that we also share this information. It's been wonderful the last 2 months. We've reached over on our platforms, probably over 300 people in total, in 5 sessions. Just imagine if we continue to spread the word, reach out and touch other individuals, our communities will be healthier and we'll live a lot longer, and things that's happening in our communities, we'll see less of it as a result. I do want to thank all of you for being on this call. I am going to, Brother Derek Griffith, are you our president or poll mark of our New Rochelle White Plains chapter? Is he on? Did he have to leave? I know there's a lot of different D9 organizations on here. I want to thank you for joining us. I know our Kappa Silhouettes and Kappa League parents are on the call as well. We want to thank you for joining us. Jack and Jill, other organizations, we want to thank you. Dr. Sealy, we thank you. You definitely added a lot to our discussion this evening, and all of you. I wish we can keep going, to be honest with you, but we don't know what the next series of things that's going to come our way. But at this time, I am going to once again thank Sister Williams, our nurse professional that's been with us this whole entire ride. I thank her. She's been blessing us with so much knowledge. Stephanie, we thank you for joining us this evening, and Liliana as well. And Liliana, I am going to let you close because I know many of them may want to know how does the gift card work, or how does that work, or the time frame, and it may have questions regarding that. But before, once again, Liliana begins to speak, just want to thank all of you. It was nice meeting you on this call, and you'll be hearing more things in the future from us as we continue to improve health literacy in our communities. Liliana?
Thank you, Paul. Before I finish up, I am putting the links that I put in the beginning of the session. I am putting them again. Apparently, they did not copy correctly, so I'm putting them again in the chat for your use if you need any resources or any information. I want to thank you for participating in this program. In 3 months, you will receive the following a follow-up survey about the health-related experiences to see if anything has changed. The survey will also be kept confidential, and you will receive an additional $10 online Amazon gift card in exchange for completing it. The emails will not be connected to the survey responses that the research staff analyzes. If you do not wish to complete the survey, you are free to delete this email. We hope this program was beneficial for you, and we would like to complete another short anonymous survey to let the program staff know whether it was helpful. You are free to leave any or all questions blank, and you will get your $10 gift card even if you refuse to answer any or all of these questions.
Okay. This information is in the chat. We do help. The surveys are not long. I think it is important. This is the only way that we improve our program. So if you can take the 2 minutes or what have you to fill out the survey, please do so. That information is very important. I know we're late in an hour, and I thank you for your time because I know time is valuable, but I do hope everyone can walk away saying that they gained something, learned something from it, or just had something just to reinforce and to reinvigorate their souls again as we continue to improve our health.
Absolutely. And I just want to take this time to thank Kappa Alpha Psi, New Rochelle White Plains chapter for partnering with the Department of Health and the Know Better, Live Better program. You guys have had amazing perseverance. You have taken series, you have been committed, you have been present, you have reached the numbers, and it has been a pleasure to partner with you and just keep doing the things that you do for your organization, but most importantly for the community and the population that we serve. It's important, it matters, and it makes a difference. Again, I thank you so much. It has been a pleasure.
Thank you, Erica. We appreciate you. All right, guys, it's been real. And keep up those health goals. And Brother Crusoe, I'll be reaching out to you for that walk sometime soon. But thank you, and everybody enjoy your evening. It's been a lovely time. Brother Dante, thank you for joining us. Veronica, Danielle, Sharon, Sandra, Zachary, Kyle, Francesca, thank you all.
All right, thanks, man. We'll hook up, certainly.
All right.
Take it easy, everybody. Have a good evening.
Good night.
Baby, kona, waka when you enter my licha. Baby, kona, will you give me sugar, wahala, macho Mona Lisa, 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 macho Mona Lisa. Mona Lisa, I go sweep you off your feet. What so she said make some time for me, time for
all right, that's Liliana, that's Stephanie. If you guys can stay on just to debrief a little bit. Brother Marine, great job as usual with the production. Appreciate you, like always. Brother Rob Bowen, I don't know if you're still on. Appreciate you, like always. Brother
Always
Andre.
happy to help. Always happy to help, good brother.
Man, you're the best. There's no one better. All right. Is that Dre? Hide in the background?
Yeah, he can't hide too far. We know where to find him.
Brother Andre.
Hiding in plain sight, son.
There you go. There you go. Right
We
there in the
wanna-
library, right? With all the other
Yes, sir.
books.
I do want to thank Andre too for bringing this to the chapter. Andre's always been a leading force with social action and improve things to improve our communities, and he does an excellent job. And our chapter wouldn't be the chapter that it is without his support and the hard work that he puts into things. So, Andre, if you could show your face, we just want to show you a little love. You can stop hiding for a few seconds.
Nah, I'm good. I'm good. Look, I'm home and I'm comfortable. All right.
Okay.
All right. I'll leave it alone. I'm gonna leave it alone.
There you go.
Liliana, is this your first time with us, Liliana?
Yes, yes,
All right,
it
so
is.
I would love to hear a little bit from you, some feedback or what you thought, being that this was your first